From out of the desert of Judea and lost for 2,000 years, the Dead Sea Scrolls, from their very discovery in 1947, still evoke mystery and controversy today. Located near the site of Qumran, about 1 kilometer from the shores of the salt-encrusted Dead Sea, the first of the scrolls were discovered by Bedouin tribesmen tending their flocks one winter's day. Jamal Muhammad was first to notice what looked like a cave upon a limestone cliff face. He decided to throw a rock to estimate the size of the opening, but when he heard the sound of something breaking, his curiosity quickened. The next morning, Jama's cousin, also known as the Wolf, seeking possible treasure, ventured into the cave. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, Muhammad noticed evidence of others who had been there ages before him, stepping upon broken bits of pottery, moving further into the cave. He saw a series of narrow cylindrical clay vessels along one wall. Curious, he began reaching into the ancient musty jars, pulling out, one by one, a series of scrolls wrapped in a foul-smelling linen. Muhammad could not have understood. This discovery would be the greatest academic treasure of the 20th century. In his hands were the great Isaiah scroll, a commentary on the book of Habakkuk and the community rule. Unaware of the significance of his find, Muhammad did recognize that these worn, brittle pieces of parchment were potentially profitable. He quickly returned to his family with his prize. Not knowing their full value, the Bedouin hung the ancient writings on a tent pole. Some of his friends repaired their sandals with leather pieces from the scrolls. One dealer said the scrolls were worthless and asserted that they were probably stolen from a synagogue. But others soon scrutinized the find, and eventually the scrolls were recognized for their true historic worth. The word spread, and spread rapidly. Soon, local Bedouin were zealously searching every cliff, every wadi, every hillock for other caves containing more scrolls. Find them they did. Cave after cave, each contained more and more of these weathered, crumbling, ancient books. Eventually, they found 11 main caves that contained what we would come to know as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some scrolls were neatly placed in covered cylindrical jars, while others were thrown into caves with little regard for their protection. Consequently, the scrolls were all kept in different states of preservation. Some were almost fully intact, but quite a few more were pulverized into myriads of small pieces, many smaller than a postage stamp. It would take scholars years to piece them together again. It was like an ancient, gigantic jigsaw puzzle, with many of the pieces missing. From this great desert library around the site of Qumran emerged the fragments of at least 1,000 manuscripts. These texts were made of either parchment or papyrus and were written in 3 different languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. The manuscripts date to the latter part of the Second Temple period, roughly between 165 before the Christian era to 70 in the Christian era. Who wrote the scrolls? Traditionally, many archaeologists connect the scrolls to the nearby site of Qumran. Many believe that the site was occupied by a Jewish sect known as the Essenes, mentioned by the Jewish historian Josephus, and Philo of Alexandria.
With the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, we now have another window into Jewish history, covering that period from about the 2nd century before the Christian era to the 1st century of the Christian era. About 900 manuscripts were discovered, and about 200 of them are actual portions of the Hebrew Bible, with every book represented except the book of Esther. Prior to the discovery of the scrolls, we only had texts that went back to the 9th century of the Christian era. Now we have biblical Hebrew texts that go back almost 1,000 years earlier.
The Great Isaiah Scroll is great in many ways. It's great in the fact that it's up to 23 feet long. The Great Isaiah Scroll is great in the fact that it's the oldest intact Old Testament manuscript in possession for scholars today. This is simply incredible. Because of the controversy surrounding the scrolls, both scientists and paleographers through carbon dating 14 and also studying the style of particular Hebrew characters have dated the scrolls to about 100 to 150 BC. This is a witness, a testimony to the accuracy of these Old Testament manuscripts. Just incredible.
Famous Dead Sea Scroll manuscripts include the Manual of Discipline, the commentary to the book of Habakkuk, the commentary to the book of Isaiah, the Copper Scroll, and the Ecclesiastes, and the Testimonia fragments. But the greatest of all the finds for biblical scholarship is the great Isaiah Scroll.
Isaiah 6:3. They were called to one another, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory."
Isaiah 11:1 and 2. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of power, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord.
Isaiah 37:32. For out of Jerusalem will come a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a band of survivors. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this.
Isaiah 53:5. He was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon Him, and by His scourging we are healed.
Isaiah 56:1. This is what the Lord says, maintain justice and do what is right, for my salvation is close at hand, and my righteousness will soon be revealed.
Isaiah 2:4. He will judge between the nations, and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. And now, friends and guests, community leaders, donors and partners, scholars and students of the Bible, the Museum of Biblical and Sacred Writings is pleased to present the Great Isaiah Scroll.